Dexter Morgan, the master of secrets, lived by one unbreakable rule: protect the code. But what happens when even Dexter crosses his own lines? When he snitches to save himself or control others? Over 8 seasons, Dexter Morgan betrayed people close to him, sometimes out of necessity, other times as a calculated move to maintain his carefully constructed double life. This video uncovers 6 of those moments, diving into who Dexter snitched on, why he did it, and what it reveals about his complex morality. As you watch, ask yourself, what would you do if your survival depended on betraying someone? Could you live with the consequences? Let's start with one of the most shocking betrayals of all: Sergeant James Doakes. To most at Miami Metro, Dexter was the quiet, reliable blood analyst with a quirky charm. But Doakes wasn't fooled. He saw past Dexter's calm demeanor and into the darkness lurking beneath. "There's something off about you, Morgan. I should have seen it before," Doakes once said. Doakes made no effort to hide his suspicions, even if it made him unpopular. He watched Dexter closely, noticing how he remained far too composed at crime scenes. But Dexter wasn't going to sit idly by and let Doakes uncover his secret. He fought back in the way he knew best: manipulation. Dexter didn't snitch in the usual way. Instead, he turned everyone against Doakes by pushing him to the edge. Dexter's strategy was simple but effective: provoke Doakes into public outbursts while remaining calm and professional himself. These moments made Doakes appear irrational, and his colleagues began to see him as paranoid and unstable. Even Captain LaGuerta, Doakes' strongest ally, started to doubt him. The tipping point came when Doakes' temper got the better of him, leading to his suspension. This was exactly what Dexter wanted: a workplace where no one trusted Doakes anymore. Then came the discovery of Dexter's blood slides. Doakes, refusing to give up, broke into Dexter's apartment and found the evidence he needed to prove Dexter was the Bay Harbor butcher. But instead of going straight to the authorities, he hid the slides in his car, planning to confront Dexter himself. This decision sealed his fate. When law enforcement found the slides, the narrative Dexter had carefully crafted fell into place. Doakes was the angry, unstable detective who had been accusing Dexter without evidence for months, now linked directly to the murders. Dexter didn't need to plant the slides himself. His months of manipulation ensured that no one questioned the idea that Doakes was guilty. Doakes' relentless pursuit of Dexter became his undoing. Dexter used Doakes' integrity and determination as weapons against him, turning them into the perfect tools to protect his double life. In the end, Doakes was framed, not because of his actions, but because Dexter ensured everyone believed he was the Bay Harbor butcher. Ask yourself, was Dexter's betrayal of Doakes inevitable, or could he have found another way? Could Dexter have spared him, or was this destruction necessary to protect his dark passenger? For James Doakes, the answer is clear. Dexter didn't just snitch to survive, he snitched to win. Then there's Paul Bennett. He wasn't just a threat to Rita, he was a direct challenge to the fragile life Dexter was trying to create. As Rita's ex-husband, Paul was a constant reminder of the trauma she had endured. His abusive tendencies and efforts to reconnect with his kids made him a disruptive presence. For Dexter, who valued the stability he was building with Rita and her children, Paul's behavior was a problem that needed solving. But Dexter didn't deal with Paul the way he handled most threats. Instead of taking him to his kill table, Dexter used strategy to remove Paul from the equation. The breaking point came when Paul's erratic behavior escalated. During one of his drunken episodes, Dexter made his move. He lured Paul to a motel where he staged the scene to make it look like Paul had fallen back into his old habits. Dexter planted heroin near Paul and left him unconscious. When the authorities arrived, the evidence was undeniable. Paul's arrest gave Rita and her children a sense of relief. It seemed like they were finally free from his destructive influence. But Dexter's actions weren't entirely selfless. By removing Paul from the picture, Dexter wasn't just protecting Rita, he was securing his place in her life. Paul, however, wasn't completely oblivious. Before his arrest, he warned Rita about Dexter, saying there was something off about him. But his credibility was non-existent. To everyone around them, Paul's words seemed like the desperate ramblings of a man trying to shift blame. This raises an important question. Was Dexter justified in setting Paul up? On one hand, Paul was a danger to Rita and her children. On the other, Dexter's actions weren't about justice, they were about control. By planting drugs and ensuring Paul's arrest, Dexter didn't just snitch, he manipulated the system to maintain the illusion of a perfect life. His actions blurred the lines between protection and selfishness. So, who was the real victim here? Paul, a man undone by his own flaws and Dexter's calculated move? Or Dexter, whose dark passenger left him unable to solve problems in any other way. The next person on Dexter's list wasn't an enemy, but someone he once called a friend, Miguel Prado. Miguel, Miami's ambitious district attorney, was one of the rare people who truly understood Dexter's frustrations with the justice system. Their bond was built on a shared belief that the law often failed to deliver justice. "Sometimes the law isn't enough. That's where we come in," Miguel told Dexter. For a time, their partnership seemed perfect. Miguel's legal authority and Dexter's deadly efficiency made them a formidable duo, targeting criminals who had slipped through the cracks. For Dexter, having someone who not only knew his secret but embraced it felt refreshing, almost liberating. But the cracks in their alliance soon began to show. Miguel's growing thirst for power turned their partnership into something dangerous. Where Dexter followed Harry's code with precision, Miguel became reckless, suggesting targets who didn't deserve death. The breaking point came when Miguel murdered Ellen Wolfe, a defense attorney who had done nothing to justify such an end. Ellen's death wasn't just unjustifiable, it was deeply personal. She was Lagerta's friend, and Miguel had killed her out of ego and spite, betraying everything their alliance had stood for. For Dexter, this wasn't just a mistake, it was an unforgivable betrayal. Instead of confronting Miguel head-on, Dexter took a more calculated approach. He dismantled his former ally from the shadows, planting seeds of doubt in Captain Maria Lagerta's mind. Lagerta, who had a close relationship with Miguel, couldn't ignore the red flags Dexter subtly exposed. By leaking small pieces of information, Dexter nudged Lagerta toward launching her own investigation. Miguel didn't realize it, but his reputation was unraveling. Lagerta's investigation isolated him from his colleagues and tarnished his once impeccable public image. But Miguel wasn't one to go down quietly. Empowered by his position and newfound boldness, he confronted Dexter, believing he could manipulate or control him. This miscalculation sealed his fate. Miguel underestimated Dexter's resolve and the lengths he would go to maintain control. Miguel wasn't just another criminal for Dexter to eliminate. He was someone Dexter had trusted, someone who had witnessed Dexter in action. But instead of respecting Harry's code, Miguel twisted their partnership into something dangerous and unsustainable. Dexter's decision to end Miguel's life wasn't just about self-preservation. It was about restoring balance. Miguel's arrogance and recklessness threatened to undo everything Dexter had built, and that was something he couldn't allow. But was Miguel truly the villain here? Or was he a reflection of what Dexter could become without the discipline of his code? Miguel's downfall wasn't so different from Dexter's own dark tendencies, only unchecked and driven by ego rather than precision. In the end, Dexter didn't just snitch on Miguel to Lagerta, he dismantled him piece by piece, ensuring that Miguel would be left vulnerable and alone. It was a calculated betrayal, one that showed just how far Dexter would go to protect his carefully constructed world. So, was this justice? Or was it Dexter's way of keeping absolute control, no matter the cost? Of all the people Dexter betrayed, Hannah McKay was the one who understood him best. She didn't just accept his dark passenger, she loved it. Unlike anyone else in his life, Hannah saw Dexter for who he truly was, and she didn't flinch. For someone who spent years hiding his true nature, Dexter found her acceptance intoxicating. But this connection came with dangers. Their shared darkness threatened to destroy everything around them. Their relationship began in extraordinary circumstances. Dexter targeted Hannah after uncovering her role in a series of poisonings. Her methods were precise, leaving no trace until her past finally caught up with her. Dexter confirmed her guilt and prepared to kill her, binding her to his table like so many before. But when the moment came, Dexter couldn't do it. Hannah didn't beg or deny her crimes. She met his gaze with quiet defiance, unafraid and unapologetic. For the first time, Dexter let someone in instead of taking their life. What followed was a relationship unlike anything Dexter had experienced. Hannah didn't just tolerate his darkness, she embraced it, even encouraging him to stay true to Harry's code. To Dexter, this wasn't just love, it was freedom. She didn't ask him to change or hide. For a while, it seemed like Dexter had found someone who could truly accept every part of him. But even freedom has limits. Hannah's impulsiveness and jealousy made her dangerous. She wasn't just a partner in crime, she was unpredictable. This volatility reached a breaking point when Hannah poisoned Deborah, seeing her as an obstacle to their happiness. For Dexter, this was a line that couldn't be crossed. His complicated bond with Deborah had always been the cornerstone of his life. Hannah's actions forced him to make an impossible choice: protect the woman he loved or the sister who had always stood by him. In the end, Dexter snitched on Hannah, turning her over to the police. It wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a rejection of the one person who fully embraced his darkness. But was it truly about protecting Deborah? Or was it Dexter's way of clinging to his moral code, the fragile structure that held his double life together? Hannah represented freedom, a life without rules. But for Dexter, that freedom came at a cost he wasn't willing to pay. Her unpredictability threatened to destroy the carefully balanced world he had built. This raises a haunting question. Did Dexter betray Hannah because he couldn't trust her? Or because he couldn't trust himself with her? Even after her arrest, their story didn't end. Hannah escaped custody and re-entered Dexter's life, proving that their connection was as dangerous as it was unshakable. Hannah McKay wasn't just someone Dexter snitched on. She was a mirror, reflecting both the freedom he craved and the destruction he feared. In the end, Dexter's betrayal wasn't just about survival. It was about protecting himself from a truth he couldn't face. So, could Dexter and Hannah have built a life together? Or was their relationship doomed from the start, destined to collapse under the weight of their shared secrets? Then there's Isaac Sirko, a powerful mob boss and one of Dexter's most dangerous adversaries. He brought a unique challenge to Dexter's world. Unlike the criminals Dexter usually faced, Isaac wasn't driven by greed, power, or sadistic pleasure. His motivation was deeply personal: revenge for the death of Victor, his lover, whom Dexter had killed after uncovering Victor's role in a murder. Isaac's approach wasn't about brute force or reckless violence. He worked with precision, mirroring Dexter's own methods. Step by step, he pieced together Victor's final moments, eventually uncovering Dexter's biggest secret, the slice of life, his boat, and crime scene in one. Isaac didn't just see Dexter as a killer. He recognized something deeper. "You're not just a killer. You're a man with a code," Isaac said when they finally came face to face. Unlike others, Isaac respected that code. He understood Dexter's need for order and chaos because he lived by his own. This wasn't a fight between opposites. It was a clash between two men who, in another life, might have been allies. But respect didn't stop Isaac. His pursuit of Dexter was relentless. He wanted more than revenge. He wanted Dexter to feel the pain of losing Victor. Isaac's calculated strategy forced Dexter into a rare position, relying on the police. By leaking information about Isaac's criminal operations, Dexter turned the law against him, forcing Isaac to divide his focus. This move gave Dexter time, but also escalated their conflict. Isaac's grief made him dangerous, but his intelligence made him nearly unstoppable. Their confrontations became a game of chess, each move revealing more about who they were. In one striking moment, Isaac laid bare the truth. "We're not so different, you and I." He drew a parallel between Victor's death and the losses that shaped Dexter. Both men had been defined by love and tragedy, and both lived by codes that justified their darkest actions. Despite this shared understanding, their paths were irreconcilable. Isaac couldn't let go of his grief, and Dexter couldn't risk exposure. Isaac's story ended in tragedy. Fatally wounded in a shootout, he sought Dexter in his final moments, not to fight, but to share a quiet truth. "You were right about one thing, Morgan," Isaac said, his voice fading. "It's not about what you take from life. It's about who you take it with." For a man who built his life on control, Isaac's final words revealed a vulnerability that mirrored Dexter's own. He wasn't just a mob boss or a vengeful lover. He was a man shaped by love, loss, and the choices that followed. Isaac's story forces us to ask, could these two men in another life have been allies? Or was their rivalry inevitable, shaped by the codes that defined them? Dexter's interactions with Isaac weren't just about survival. Isaac forced him to confront the thin line between morality and vengeance, and what it really meant to live by a code. In the end, Isaac Sirko wasn't just another adversary. He was a reflection of Dexter's own contradictions, leaving us to wonder, what truly separates a man with a code from the monsters he hunts? These 6 moments reveal the many faces of Dexter Morgan. To some, he was a vigilante hero. To others, a manipulative monster. But in each betrayal, one thing remained constant: Dexter's need to control his world at any cost. So, who did Dexter snitch on, and why? In every case, the answer lies in his unrelenting drive to protect his secret and maintain his code. But perhaps the real question is, was Dexter's code a moral framework, or just another way to justify the unforgivable? Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Which betrayal shocked you the most? See you in the next one.